Okay, so here we are. So today we're going to talk about prepared SQL. And I'm going to ask ahead of time, do either of you guys know what prepared SQL is? But you've seen it in Profiler and whatnot, right? Where it says like SQL prepare, SQL unprepare, right? Right. Okay. So that's prepared SQL. And I got this question last week from another student, and I thought, hey, I'll teach it I'll put together something for everybody and record it and put it up on Midnight, because this is the kind of content you can only get from midnightdba.com. So what we're doing here, and I'll give you a little bit of background. It's not as popular as it used to be, but oddly enough, I still see it plenty of times. Prepared SQL is still out there in abundance, probably because we have a lot of older apps still, right? Now, what I'll tell you that these days prepared SQL has been replaced mostly by SP calls. But we've always had SPs, so I'm not entirely sure what the reason for it was to begin with. It was another one of those trends that went on for a few years and then just kind of slowly faded away, right? But my best guess is that for applications that you couldn't necessarily do SPs for, this is a way of kind of making your ad hoc SQL into an SP. So I like to call it like temporary stored code, but it really is kind of more like a temporary SP that gets done behind the scenes. And I'll show you how this works here in a minute. But the reason I call it more of a temp SP is because of the way it comes through in Profiler and in xevents. So we're gonna look at both of those. Well, we're not going to look at Profiler. We're just going to look at xevents, but it's the same basic thing, right? So, what do we do when we prepare SQL? Hold on one sec. There we go. So we run sp prepare, and I'm not entirely sure everything it does behind the scenes. I think it probably creates a temp sp, but I'd have to do a help text on that to see, but I've just never bothered doing it. So what happens? You run sp prepare, and when you do, it gives you back two statements. So what do I put in the parameter? I put in the code I want to run, and it's parameterized code, right? That's what makes this special. So right now I'm going to select these columns from my servers table, and I'm going to look at it on a particular SLA. So far, so good. Typical red SQL, right? And inside there, I also define the parameter itself. So this is pretty standard stuff, right? There's nothing special going on here. I've got one parameter here I've got one input parameter here that holds my parameter, and another one here that holds the statement itself that calls the parameter. Nothing special. So when I call sp prepare with this code in it, I'm going to get back both an empty result set, so it's going to show you the shape of your query, and I'm going to get back a statement number, right? So the statement number is what you call next. So the way this works is this is a session level type of code, right? It's like a variable, right? As soon as you end your session, this particular code right here that's being stored goes away. But let's say that you want to, and I'm pretty sure this works with connection pooling, right? So let's say that you've got a bunch of connections in a pool, and you want to have them, and they're all going to run the same statement more or less. They're all going to run this statement just with different parameters again and again and again and again and again, right? So like, you know, first thing in the morning, all the schools start logging in, or all the students start logging in, right? So everybody's going to run this statement with different parameters, maybe with the same parameter, right? Again and again and again. So I prepare this, and I get back a statement number. Then I call sp execute with that statement number and the parameter that I want to pass in. So in this case, that statement number is going to be 1. So now when I call this guy, I'm going to get back my result set. So it's a way of storing this as a statement, a session level statement, and then being able to call it by the statement number instead, and then passing in a parameter. And now if I had 5 parameters that I wanted to pass in, I would just stack them up on top of each other, right? Comma this, comma that, comma that, comma that, right? So it would look like a regular SP call. I didn't do a multiple parameter example because it all starts to look boring after a while, right? But again, this is, if I were to call this again, I would get a different number, even though this time it happens to be the exact same statement, right? But I can still call it with 2. Oops. Right. So I come here, and I get the same results back. If I want to call this with silver instead, I have no idea if I'm even going to get a result set here. But I am. There we go. So that's what prepared SQL is. That's when you're seeing that in Profiler and in xevents. And I can unprepare it as well, right? So I can unprepare it by dropping this connection and starting again. So I can say, give me that guy right there. Let me go back into the minion database. Now if I run this again, I'm back down to 1, right? So I can also specifically unprepare and get rid of that statement completely. And now if I try to run with 1 now, I should get an error. There we go. So there is no more statement handle. Okay, now the question comes in, when I see this in xevents or Profiler, how do I get the statement? So let's visit that. Let's take a look at what we get. Oh, I was already there. There we go. So I have an xevent session that I've set up, and I'm just going to start this guy. And just go back to the other screen. There we go. So now when I run this guy, I'm going to get a host of things. So I get module start. Oh, look at that. I get a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to get the module start. Most of this is null. Batch starting. This is all just that normal stuff you get every single time, right? Collecting, getting my SPID, all of that stuff. This is where you can see I'm setting that SQL text, right? Equal to that. This is not the interesting part, and there's just that close down stuff. Now I'm going to clear my data, and now when I run this guy, was it 2? It's possible. It's here. I'm gonna just reconnect and just start back from scratch because I lost where I was. So I'm going to do that. There we go. I got that. And now I'm going to run it. There we go. Now I've got all this stuff here, right? And you can see here, or you should be able to see here, I've got that guy. And I should be able to see the prepare statement. I'm going to close this and start it up again, because I'm not getting what I should be getting. What I want to do is that. And then, is it under management? Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to stop my session, start my session, watch live data. Maybe I did it under the quick t-sql session. Let me see. Let me look at my properties. It's kind of good for you guys to see the events anyway. SQL batch. Let me see what I'm doing here. Properties. Module in, module start, RPC starting, SQL statement. Yeah, I think this is the one. So let me close down the SP call. And let me do, in fact, I'm just going to stop that one. And then I'm going to go with my quick t-sql session here. Watch live data. Now I'm going to come back here. Here it is. So I'm going to come back here and let's run this again. And now we have to change it to 2. Aha, you're not going to get me on that twice. And now when I call a run, okay. Now let's see what we got. This looks much better. This is what I was expecting to see. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff in here. You're not really as interested in this as you are the rest, but we do have our SQL prepare statement here, and you notice it comes in as batch starting, batch completed. Got the same thing. You notice here I'm passing in the statement, and here are the parameters I passed in to that SP prepare. The rest of these guys are null. All of this is house cleaning. But now here's that call in the batch starting and batch completed, right? So when I see this SP execute to silver, it's like, what the hell does that mean, right? What the hell is to and silver? But I've also put in the session ID and the event sequence for you as well. So now when I've got this guy here, where is my statement text? I don't have my statement text here. I thought I did, but I do not. So I get to stop this again and add my statement text. So now when I come to properties and go to events, I'm going to expand this a little bit. And this is one of the problems I have with this editor, is that with this wizard screen is none of these guys are resizable. See? So I can't really get the full thing here. I just got this little thing right here. I think that's kind of sloppy. But I can go to configure, and then I can say SQL batch starting right here. I want SQL batch ending, I think. SQL batch completed. And then I can move this over. All this looks really familiar to you now, doesn't it? As a coding construct. So now what I want, I've got the SQL text, and I'm looking for I think I want the stored procedure stuff. SP statement, let me try that. Did I already try SP statement? Because I got the SQL text there. But what I need is, Where is my search? Search events right there. SP statement starting. SP statement starting, that'll do. Perfect. So SP statement starting. Let me add it over here. And then come here, SP statement starting. And SQL text. And then SP statement completed, just to be complete right here, right? And I'll say SQL text I've already got. Let me see if that improves my output. So I'm going to, okay, good. So that's already stopped because I had to stop it to do that. Let's go to this other window. Let's reconnect so our numbers don't keep going up. You know, if I were smart, I'd put a use statement in there, but oh well. So now I'm going to do that. There we go. Let's go back to 1. And now let's come back here and turn on our trace. And I don't know if I'm still watching live data. There we go. And now I come back here and let's run this statement and see if we get what we're looking for. Ooh, lots of stuff, huh? Okay. So I got my batch completed here. SQL text. What I'm looking for is SP statement completed. Oops, that's a completely different one altogether, isn't it? And where did it go? I've got a whole bunch of stuff here that shouldn't have started. I'm having to search through a whole bunch of stuff here. So if I look here, yeah, that's what I was looking for. So I'm looking for this guy right here, 60, and I don't see another 60 here except for that. There it is, there it is. So SP statement completed, and I see the SQL text right there, right? In fact, let me raise this up just a little bit. So there's my SQL text, and then there's the statement that it ran. So it's in 2 separate fields, and what I should do is come up here and show column and table so that now I've got the whole thing in one place, and there it is right there. So I've got SP statement completed, and I'll actually add SQL text to it as well, except now that's going to be at the end. I wonder if I can move that. Can I move that? Nope, doesn't look like it. I have to drop it and re-add it, right? So, okay, I'm just trying to drag this over some. There we go. And do that. So there we go. That's a much better view. So here, and you've even got this SQL statement starting, right? That gives you the statement itself, but it doesn't give you the SQL text that was passed into SQL, right? So this is the SQL text that was passed into SQL, and this is the code that it actually ran. And this is why I call it more of a temporary SP, right? Because it comes in under the SP statement starting and completed. So it's got to be an SP of some kind in the background, right? So it kind of creates that on the fly for you. But that's all I had to say about that. I wanted to, like I said, this hasn't been taught in so long, but it does show up when you see these SP prepare and unprepare and whatnot statements. And, you know, the question always comes up, you know, well, what the hell is prepared SQL? What does that even mean, right? This is what prepared SQL means. is that you prepare it as a saved query, and then you're able to run it with a very simple call like that to shorten it a lot. So I'll say that this performs pretty damn well when you've got really small queries like this. The bigger the queries get, the less it performs well. I'm not entirely I don't entirely remember the what am I trying to say? The reasons behind that. But I just remember that, you know, when they're big, they don't perform as well, so you might want to move to something else. But this isn't really used. It's still in all the libraries, but it still isn't really used. We, you know, use SPs now, and we had SPs back then too, so I guess it was just a trend that somebody thought was really cool for a while, I guess. The only use case I can think of would be, again, where, like, you know, maybe you've got ad hoc SQL that you don't want to push across the wire all the time, and you can't really change it from ad hoc very easily. So instead you just prepare it and then send it across and then just make the calls different, right? I can see how that would be an easier change to make on the front end. And in retrospect, now that you've been doing a lot of that kind of coding, you can kind of see how that would be easier too, right? I mean, rather than taking all the different use cases, like if you're building a whole bunch of SQL on the back end from a whole bunch of different sources, right? And then sending it to SQL, you can see how it would be easier to, because maybe there are some joins in some of them and not in the others, and so on, right? So maybe it's easier to do that and prepare the SQL and then just make that final call than it is to take all of those different use cases and try to put them into an SP, right? So you can see now where that would be a lot easier to do from a front end than it would be to convert it to an SP. So there you go. That's prepared SQL. Any questions? May not be able to answer them, but you know. Cool. I'll go ahead and turn off the recording then.